Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of Brace for Impact. This is episode 29, the spooky edition, because it is going to be the Halloween episode. And joining me, of course, is the Women's Council, the all-important and deciding factor
What?
on everything.
No,
Brace.
you put your hood up right now, goddammit. We are the Women's
on.
Council, okay? Yeah, we are the Women's Council.
I shall join.
Welcome to episode 29 of the Women's Council Evil Edition. It is kind of ironic that this is going live on Halloween, though. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't even plan that out. I've looked like, oh, snap, it's the Halloween. It's actually going to be the Halloween episode. So, Parks, happy Halloween to you.
Happy Halloween, Benny. I mean, yeah, we get to have fun. You know, if you think about it, if we do it long enough, we're going to hit every single major holiday. Just by virtue of
it only
the way
takes about
shifts.
5 years to complete that cycle. We're 1 year in, so hey.
We're getting somewhere. All right, speaking of somewhere, we got a lot of places to be. There's a long list to go through. So, yes, my mic is recording. I did double check that before we started. No. I knew once we had that issue the first time, it was a good call to double check with me there.
Let's get back on track though.
Yeah.
Shall we? And where did you want to start?
I don't know. We could start with the cash cups just because we can quickly guide ourselves.
Yeah, I think we turn and burn them. So let's start with Oceania, right? Everybody's favorite. Yeah. Stacks of Cash and Yarp. It's the two old rivalries. Is the Aussie Derby, the Oceanic Derby, the ANZ Derby, whatever you want to say, because there are a few New Zealanders. There are a few New Zealanders in this outlet. Of course, the main one in this side being Seta. And actually, did she play? I don't know if she played. Did Sarah play?
For Cash Cup.
One of the normal people I'm so used to seeing did not play.
Kimbab.
Yeah, thank you, Kimbab. That's the player. Yeah. So
I think she was still traveling at this point. I think she because you have to remember around this time was IEM Sydney, so they actually had
that's
week number 2.
The weekend after IEM Sydney.
So week number 2 got canceled as a result of IEM Sydney. That literally almost all the players were at Sydney. There was no chance that they were going to.
It wasn't literally almost all the players were at Sydney, mate. Like I think there were 2 people who like.
But that's the thing, right? It's like it's our Dallas.
One for the Cash Cup.
It's our Dallas, you know. Like everybody was at Dallas.
Oh yeah.
Who could afford it? Everybody went to Dallas. I mean, I distinctly remember Bouchard coming to me and be like, "Hey, like, do you guys still have space in your Airbnb?" And we went like, "No, we're already full." And she's like, "I don't know if I can make it now." And then Saturday comes around, and look who's wandering around was Bouchard. So
I know, right?
Everybody who could have made it and tried to actively make it, like didn't have work commitments or anything, they made it. So that's what Sydney is
Dallas special too, by the way. So I'm sure Sydney felt the same for them.
Exactly. Yeah, so that just left us with number 3 on the week, and I mean Yarp went crisp 2-0, 13-9, 13-8 against Stacks of Cash. Not really much to write home about, man. The Oceanic scene's just trucking along.
They were close games. They were like fairly close games.
Yeah, I would say so.
So you know, it was a good Cash Cup to commentate. I actually got brutalized by this. So I went to bed at 4:30 p.m. on Friday.
Right.
And I got up at 12:20. Yeah. And I was like, oh, it's Cash Cup time. And then I did the Cash Cup, and I sat here at like 4 a.m. Like, am I going to be able to go back to bed because the Asia one got canceled?
Yeah.
I did, and I got up for golf, and then went to the game. So
amazing.
Yeah. It was going to bed at 4:30. By the way, is a big challenge. It's a challenge, bro. So
all right. Well, actually, I think we would have covered this one already then for the Asia Cup qualifier. I only see that number 2.
We only have to do 3 got canceled as well. There were no teams, so
yeah,
we only have to do. Let's move over to South Africa. They only had 1.
Yeah.
Because autumn number 3 got canceled because
Girl Gamer Fest.
Yeah, GamerGirl. Girl Gamer. Sorry, Cape Town Festival, which we'll cover later in the episode. But this autumn number 2, we had 3 teams sign up: ATK, White Rabbit, Amaryllis, and of course the 3rd team being Evasive.
Yep.
White Rabbit 2-0 Evasive. It was I believe pretty easy. 13-8 was the first map. 13-6 was the second. That left us with ATK versus White Rabbit. We got a grand final 13-9 on map 1, 13-9 on map 2, and ATK going under the name Ocean. That's OSHUN. win yet another cash cup. So this is kind of like this was kind of used, I would say, as like a preamble to that
Yeah.
Girl Gamer LAN. So
All right, moving forward, then we go into South America. We did get two this time around with them. I know all the other ones, 1 or 2 canceled across the entire board. Cash Cup number 2 for South America. I had some good names here, actually. 5 teams signed up. The big 4 being Fluxo, Cafina, WSemi, and Capivaras. And the final ended up going to Fluxo against W7M. Fluxo taking that comfortably in a 2-0. You know what? I say comfortably, 16-12, 13-11. So it was a close game.
yeah, tight,
Across the
very
board.
tight.
But you know what? They come out on top of it, and good to see from them. And I mean, and you look at Fluxo against Cafina, it's a 13-2, 13-0.
Yeah, Cafina,
On the
by the
way.
way, finished bottom in South America. A little bit of a
Yeah.
spoiler, but I think everybody kind of saw that with the first 5 weeks of the league that they were a little bit outclassed. Sundogs was the team they beat. That's like a pug team. We've seen them in Liga Femenina quite a bit, right?
Yeah.
Actually, it looks like it was a walkover. They didn't even do the map veto, so they didn't show up.
Oh wow.
Unfortunately, so just something happened there. But nonetheless, that side is traditionally a pug side that we do see.
Ooh.
And yeah, Caprivaras, a little bit interesting. That's kind of like Bittner's team usually. I know 11 is there, Arquinha was there, Bizina was there. So they put up a little bit of a fight on Nuke, but yeah, W7M debuting a new roster, which we'll talk about later, making the final and making a close final out of it, actually.
Yeah, and I mean, good on them. Good to see that there was some fight in there. I think we should move on to the next one though, because it's a bit more interesting in terms of rosters. There was only 2 teams on this one. It was Capivaras going up against a team called Oval Martin, and it was a core Fluxo player, players, Goddess, Yuli, and Junger, joined by Lei. I want to say Lee.
Yeah, Lei and
Lei
Bob
from W7M, and Bob's is playing on MIBR right now. So 3 different teams represented by Oval Mountain, and they won 13-4 on Nuke and 13-8 on Ancient. So they took that one, and it was just the 2 teams. So kind of like its own Oceanic Cash Cup, I guess you could say. But yeah, that's where that one got left. So we can keep going here, and we can talk about North America.
Yeah.
Um,
Real quick, the reason that they had low attendance in that one was because that was the weekend of Super League of Feminine.
yeah.
So, most of those teams were playing in that. Anyway, yes, North America.
Excuse me.
All good.
6 teams coming through. Interestingly enough, Peruvian Peak is came back in for a little bit there. Shout out Barbuja and Namita, who
and Moshi, another
Moshi.
Peruvian.
Yeah. I want to mainly shout out Barbuja and Namita though, because consistently we see that when they can and they want to, they come back and they play the North American service, just because like the ping to Brazil versus the ping to America from Peru is pretty much exactly the same. So might as well go for one that you might have a bit more of a competition.
And they won their opening game, sadly against Reef, great friend of the pod. I don't know if you know Men in Blazers, but they do something called GFOP, which is great friend of the pod. So if we had a version of GFOP, Reef would definitely be it. And nonetheless, her wanted goons bandits. I almost said 9 bandits. I was like, where's that going? But
wanted 9's fearless.
Yeah, exactly.
Pandas.
9 bandits fearless. It is no, but Peruvian Peak beat them only to go up against Totsugeki. They got 2-0, unfortunately, by Totsugeki. 13-7, 13-5. On the other side, we had VLR Check and Cat 5. Cat 5 is Rice, Rain, Bella, Ash. 13-2 for them over VLR Check. VLR Check was Tatiana. Arianarchist, interestingly enough, by the way, a name that I haven't seen in CS in a long time.
Yep.
And then of course Alex as well, another a name that's been around there for a while. So playing in that one. Tsunami Sirens got the bye. They played Cat 5. Tsunami Sirens went 2-0 in that one. 13-7, 13-10 was a little bit closer. And then Tsunami Sirens took the win over Totsugeki 13-3 on the opening map. And then I believe that's all they played, judging by the Faceit page. Looks like it might have been a forfeit on map 2. So, oh no. That's so weird. The Faceit page doesn't have the second. 13-3, 13-3 for both. That's so odd. Faceit, I swear to God.
That is what it is. What it is, man. Yeah, but Tsunami Sirens winning that one is comfortable, and I mean it's a precursor if you think about it. Anyways, coming into the other Cash Cup that happened, then number 3 in the autumn section, Tsunami weren't in this one. Actually, Totsugeki was the highest rated team. There was 5 teams total, so it was Totsugeki is the big one. Witchface, which is a combination of Wanted Goons players and Jada Mama Alien, Napka, who has, I believe she lives in North America now, so she's been kind of super subbing wherever she can to get some games in.
Looking good while she's super subbing too.
Yes.
She's looking like a real good player.
Jellybean and Kichu have also joined them on that. Category 5 are here as well. Notably Cloudy instead of Rain on that one.
I love Kichu, by the way. Shout out Kichu. She's hilarious. She's absolutely hilarious.
And then Lady Godivas, which featured Jay Lee, T-Bear, Namida, Barbuja, and of course Alex Leet. So
yep.
But yeah, that one ended up going the way of
nobody.
I think
the game is scheduled for tomorrow.
Oh, that is.
So the reason is Totsugeki obviously had to play Saturday and Sunday, right? Because they had the Impact League.
That's right. I completely forgot that this was the weekend of the Super.
So Cat 5 agreed to reschedule the final. Totsugeki asked for it, obviously.
Yeah.
And this is what I like. I like when the community's reasonable like this, which I think you really get in the women's community. There's a lot of teams that are reasonable like this.
Yeah.
So they've rescheduled the final for tomorrow. So the actual Cash Cup winner, which will be pretty much debuting right after this podcast.
Oh yeah, I guess tomorrow when the podcast comes out.
No, Wednesday.
It's on the Wednesday. But it will be
Wednesday.
technically tomorrow by the time the podcast comes out. Anyways,
That's true. Okay.
Time travel is relative. Anyways,
yeah.
That's good. I like this. I like the idea that, they said, "Hey, let's leave this for now because we know that you guys are busy. So who cares? Like we'll come back and we'll play it whenever. It's just something
I mean, you're guaranteed money anyway, right?
Exactly. So... Both are guaranteed money. Let's just, let's have some fun with this. So then that leaves us with Europe and final 2 coming in here. We're gonna keep breezing through here just because everything.
Guild have finally won a Cash Cup.
They have,
and that's autumn number 2. That's what I was building up for. I'm glad you didn't steal my thunder.
Yeah.
It's look, they beat Nameless. They had required an overtime in that one. Nameless is a good is a Finnish side with a lot of names I haven't seen for a while. I have seen some of these names on like a Wikipedia page before, but Amy B, Silage, Una, Emma, Picoums. So pretty good. Finnish, they're very good at CS. Guilty Sports got pushed all the way, 16-14, 13-8 after beating Emotionless. Mouse for Aimers was the big one to watch here. That's Hikomi, Miley, Lolita, Gaba, Twix. A little bit of foreshadowing there for you. But nonetheless, Guild beat Emotionless and then beat Nameless, who had taken down No Idea. Wolf beat 55 Power. We've heard of 55 Power before. Obviously, Splayushka, Cold Heart, Dash Q is on that side as well. Melrose. Wolf is Sunside, Twixie, Taki, Tinka, Vispel. They actually would beat Mouse Framers 2-1, surprisingly. And then Guild would get a 2-1 win over them. 6-13, 13-9, 13-4. Mirage, Anubis, Ancient. So Guild have finally won a Cash Cup, a tournament in general.
That's huge.
And it's a Cash Cup, yeah.
That's huge. I mean, that does speak to, them starting to improve over time and everything. And also, getting the experience of playing an Impact when you come back to this and now you're going, okay, we've had the huge experience. We've had all the scrims that come with that. Now we're going to play against other teams in Cash Cups. And, I mean, there aren't any other big names in here. Like, Astronauts is probably the closest one I can see to a name that I recognize, aside from 55 Power. But yeah, it's good on Guild for winning that, and it's a feel good moment for them, because that just means like, hey, we've been struggling so much with Impact, and we barely, we got through on invites, and now it's like, okay, well, at least we can prove ourselves with a qualifier or with a cash cup to be like a faux qualifier. That leads us with the cash cup number 3, and interestingly enough, Woof Woof and Mouse for Gamers came back into this one. A little bit of changing up of the lineups.
Yep. The Finnish side was there as Kisa.
Yep.
So who got downed 2-0 by Mouse Framers. This interesting side, Partisan Red, came in. That's like a Russian side, almost an all Russian side. One Belarusian on there as well.
Yeah.
And Massive Void was another mixed side. It's nice to see Nadi Watsuka and Anakin back, by the way.
Right.
Those are 2 names I haven't seen in at least 3 years. They paired with Mikeri, but the new lineup, Snodgard female was in here. More on that in a little bit as well.
Yes.
But they got downed by Massive Void. Wolf Wolf would beat them, and Mouse for Aimers would 2-0 Wolf Wolf in the end, 13-11, 13-9. Lolita's won a cash cup.
Shout out Lolita.
Lolita, yeah. If anyone doesn't know, absolutely one of the kindest souls, and hasn't made Impact, right?
Yeah.
She was big KZ streamer for a time as well. She streamed KZ a lot, and is just really, really, really very, very kind, well loved in this community. So for her to win a cash cup, I'm so happy for her. I'm so proud of her. Shout out Lolita.
All right, well, that is all the cash cups for the last 2 weeks, so good to see that we're catching up. I know there was a little bit of a worry, at least just from player standpoint, like, were they actually going to keep getting cash cups? Because the cash cups, at least in North America, had been canceled on the mixed side. But as far as we can tell, Impact cash cups are still going to keep going. The scheduling has been a bit weird just because of all the tournaments that have been happening, but it seems like we're kind of getting to the point where everything's kind of back to normal. We'll get the 2 a month, and we'll be fine overall. Now, do we want to tackle Girl Gamer, or do we want to tackle...
Let's do Girl Gamer, because it's going to be quick. It's only 4 teams.
100%.
So Girl Gamer Cape Town ran a dual League of Legends Counter-Strike Festival.
Yeah.
2nd year running. For more information about the first year, go see our interview with Haya Newt that we had, actually. Brace for Impact Extras. But it's back for another year. Attack Ocean, Aperture, White Rabbit Amaryllis, and a team called Optional Extras, which is like a puggy team.
Yeah.
Includes Emma Dilemma, the longtime player, turned, I believe, graphic artist in the scene. So it's a double elimination bracket. I don't know why, but the opening matches are best of 3, and then the winner's final is a best of 1. It just makes no sense whatsoever. ATK would 2. Yeah, I guess. I don't know. ATK would 2-0 Aperture. Optional Extras 2-0'd White Rabbit. And then the loser's semi is a best of 1. I don't know why. White Rabbit, yeah, I know. But it's just such a terrible format, isn't it? White Rabbit Amaryllis would beat Aperture. That would knock them out. Optional Extras actually beat ATK on the winner's bracket, best of 1. So it dropped ATK to the lower bracket, and then it's time for the Demon Run. ATK would 2-0 White Rabbit Amaryllis to make the grand final. Optional Extras would start with the 1 map advantage coming from the upper bracket, but ATK would win all 3 maps that were actually played and win the tournament. So it's the 2nd tournament win in a row for ATK in terms of Girl Gamer Esports Festival Cape Town. Big congratulations to them, because not only did ATK win, but what you call it, Megs and the rest of her team got to watch the Springboks win the Rugby World Cup on Saturday, and then turn around and win the Cape Town Festival.
Amazing.
So, as far as I'm concerned, Megs, that's like 2 championships in a weekend.
That's the double right there. Amazing.
That is the double, yeah.
All right. Well, that does leave us with the big event of this weekend, of this week, really, was the conclusion of the regular season of ESL Impact Season 4. The only thing left to play with, at least in terms of games... Oh, no, it's over as well. Sorry. The only thing that's left to play in Season 4 is the LAN Finals. I thought the playoffs for Europe still had to happen.
No, they were Saturday.
They were Saturday, so they were settled. Where do we want to start then? Do we want to start with Europe?
With that playoff?
Let's start with Europe.
Yeah.
So leading into that series, the team, the matches have kind of been settled up. I'm just gonna quickly open up because we saw we had week 4 matches, and then we had week 5 and then week 6 in playoffs.
So we did week 5 and week 6 from the pod. So the last pod was on the 16th. So let's start with week 5. Group A.
Yep.
NIP with 2-1 Athena. I'm actually shocked Athena got a map off NIP. I didn't expect them to be that competitive. The first map was really tight too. Anubis was 13-11 for NIP. But then NIP kind of found the distance on the second map, on the final map, 13-7 on Mirage.
Yeah.
One Win Gang beat VP Angels, and that set up a scenario where essentially everybody was vying. One Win Gang, Big, and NIP were all going into the final week vying for that playoff spot.
Yeah.
Big and NIP, basically the winner of that
would
determine
go to
the playoffs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because there was no way One Win was going to beat Nigma. Nobody looks close right now. And One Win are not a bad team. They played some great Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
But Nigma's it's Nigma, man. Like, nobody's beating them right now. It's a 13-6, 13-9.
The last team to beat them was NIP, and that was before the changes
with
happened.
Paulie.
Yeah.
And they don't have Paulie anymore.
Exactly.
So, and that's the difference, right? NIP made the playoff with her. This time they don't. Big 2-1 them.
Yeah.
The second map was OT as well. So Nip took the map in OT. Big took it 16 or 13-10, 13-4.
Yep.
And Athena beating VP Angels, just okay, there it is. I'm so glad you made me walk back my VP Angels pick in the preview show, because I was going to pick him 4th in his group, and instead I walked it back and picked him dead last. And guess what? We got him dead last.
That
Big
does
make the playoff there.
Yeah, that does set up Big as the playoff contender. Then, as Nigma Galaxy had already qualified the week before, because of how the group had landed itself together. Now, Group B, week 5, week 6, Shinigami faced off against G2 Oya. G2 handedly took care of them, 13-3 on both maps. Navi Javelins as well. This was the big match for them, just to see, where would they stack up against Nine Pandas Fearless.
This is the litmus paper.
The litmus paper, it read green. So they took the 2-0 there, 13-10, 13-7. So that set them up as the group leaders. And then kind of everything else fell into place. Nine Pandas Fearless faced off against Gamer Legion Prism, won that 2-0. Navi Javelins taking care of Shinigami as well, a quick 2-0 for them. The big one at the end, the end of the season, was to see kind of where G2 Oya versus Guild was at, kind of where G2 sits in the group.
Yeah,
and it was a 2-1. So
yeah, and the big reason, real quick, that this was a big game is because Guild were 2-2, or G2 were 2-2 coming in. Guild were 1-3.
Yep.
So had Guild beat G2, they would have relegated G2. I'm pretty sure. So
we don't have confirmation on how
I'm sorry. Had they beat G2, they would have relegated Gamer Legion.
Yeah.
So that was the big thing. So Guild had a chance. They were fighting for survival, but like you said, it was a 2-1. They didn't make it. So so Nine Pandas got the qualification spot there. Your relegated teams though, Ents, Guild, VP Angels, and Shinigami.
Yep. So yeah, the teams that survive but don't make the LAN finals in any, they don't even have a chance in the playoffs, was One Win Gang, G2 Oya, NIP, and Gamer Legion Prism. So those 4, as far as we can tell, at least those 4 are still around. But that left Nine Pandas Fearless to go up against Big Akipa, just to see who would be that 3rd European team to qualify. And it was it felt like a closer match than it was. It was a 13-5, 13-9. Nine Pandas Fearless taking it in a 2-0.
Maybe the second map did. The first map,
you're right.
Were not really.
I didn't watch the first map. I watched the second one. Sometimes at certain times it felt really close, but I mean a 4-round difference. So, yeah, Nine Pandas Fearless. They're the 3rd European team to qualify. So I will be seeing them in Valencia.
Deja vu.
Yeah,
deja vu.
Deja vu. Listen, they come up clutch when they need to, and that's how it sits.
Yeah.
Let's do.
They're a good team. It's tough to take them down.
I think we should do South America next.
Yes, I agree.
Just because of where we are with North America.
North America is nuts. So let's do South America. Week 5, MIBR versus Mocreas. And which I just love saying that team name, by the way. It was a 2-1 for MIBR. Really tight affair. 13-7, 11-13, 13-8. So Mocreas, pretty good fight. I got to sneeze, so I'll let you take the rest.
For sure. And I mean, Fluxo Demons then continued that match night going up against Kafina. Not really much of a game to be said. I mean, the first map, 13-10 on Nuke, but yeah, 13-5 on Ancient. Fluxo take that one in 2-0 fashion. Furia then played off against Disgrasa, and they 13-1 on both maps. There is nothing to talk about there. Furia is on.
I mean, it's
fire.
Furia. Like Kidis Grass had to play a play-in to get in. Like not even a qualifier. They had to play in like to get in because a W7M drop. Like it just.
Well, this next, so yeah, that one was, was a match.
It was expected.
It was expected. The next matchup to come through was X Divina going up against Ravens, and this was a big match for X Divina just because of where they sit in the group. They were still kind of at this point fighting for a playoff spot against Fluxo. Sorry, I gotta sneeze now.
Yeah, Fluxo. Yeah, and MIBR for that matter of fact.
Yeah, and so the 2-1 coming the way X Divina, 13-11 on Vertigo. 13-3 on Ancient for Ravens. That was a huge one for them. And then a 13-9 on Mirage for X Divina to take that one and really punch their ticket forward here and say, we're going to be top 4. That's where we're going to try and stick for the rest of this. Because you have to remember, the first week they beat MIBR. So they were kind of like, as a bubble team, they were doing really well.
So they were sitting literally after that win over Ravens 4-1.
Yeah.
Like literally. Because and you're looking at it going right. X Divina have Mocreas, which will be a tough test.
Yep.
And then they have Furia, and it's like you don't fancy them to win the Furia game, but if they can win against Mocreas and the Demons slip up twice or slip up anything, you know what I mean? Then maybe
there's
something crazy happens. Yeah, something crazy could happen. So we'll that wasn't the case at the start of week 6. Demons didn't slip up.
No.
They beat Kidis Grass at 13-3, 13-7. And then MIBR took care of Kafina 13-1 on both maps. Kafina really struggled this whole season. So, and then of course on the Saturday, you had Furia 2-0 Ravens, 13-5, 13-8. That gave them the top spot pretty much. That guaranteed them, I should say, first place, right? So, they were through. I'm sorry, Mocreas though had to play X Divina. That was the matchup of the season, pretty much, and it turned out to be 10-13, 13-6, 13-11 for Mocreas. That is a huge win for Mocreas because it put them essentially at 3-3, going into having to face Kidis Grasa to try and stay in the league because they weren't relegated yet, right?
Exactly.
But it was a big loss to Divina. Like pretty much sunk Divina's chances
of
the land. Not
of
even
of the land. They don't have playoffs. This is and I mean so coming into the final day, like every matchup is really big. Fluxo Demons going up against MIBR. To really keep MIBR in this like in a chance to keep a top 4 spot, because at this point it is Mocreas, X Divina, and MIBR that are the 3 teams really fighting for those remaining 2 spots. And it ends up going Fluxo Demons' way, 13-5, 16-14 on Anubis. It had a little bit of a dead rubber game with Ravens versus Kafina, 13-5, 13-3 for Ravens. And then of course Mocreas versus Kidis Grasa. 2-0 there, 13-4, 13-5, and that basically kind of locked in Mocreas, and X Divina then played off against Furia. It went the way of Furia as expected, 13-5, 13-1, and so when the dust settled, you have a team that's 7-0, 6-1. Both those guys are going to Valencia, and then you have 3 teams that are 4-3, and this is when the tiebreakers really get fun.
So.
Go ahead. This is your area.
Okay, so the crazy thing is that literally it means that every game matters, because the big difference maker that literally sunk MIBR into 5th place was the very first week when they had to play Divina, right? And that was a 2-0. And what it meant was that even though Divina lost to Mocreas, because they lost 2-1, right, and they had beaten MIBR 2-0, their map difference amongst the 3 tied teams was +1. Mocreas beat Divina 2-1, but lost to MIBR by the same amount. So Mocreas' map difference between the tied teams was even.
Yeah.
But because MIBR won 2-1 over Mocreas, but lost 2-0 over Divina's, their map difference with the tied teams was -1. And that meant that remarkably, unpredictably, MIBR, who I would have thought, and everybody would have looked at this saying they're definitely the third best team in Brazil.
Yep.
They're not. They finished 5th. They are relegated. They have to requalify. Now, I would fancy their chances.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's Brazil,
but it's the fact that they have to requalify in the first. But the fact that 2 teams, Divina, which, I mean, you look at every Cash Cup, you look at every tournament they played in leading up to this, they were always dead last, or they were always in there with like with like a Kiddis Grasa or Ravens, a Kafina. They were like 5th, 6th best. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They finished 3rd. They're coming back.
Crazy.
And Mocreas, Bocor's pug team, right?
Yeah.
They've made it through. They're coming back for season 5.
And I mean, something else that's huge for both these teams, because they're free agent teams, is the money that they get from staying up. They get an extra $1,000 as a team compared to the ones that get relegated.
Yeah.
So that's huge. And I mean,
and
it's just it's. I mean, you look at this, and yes, MIBR are going to come back, no problem. Like the whole thing with, Europe doesn't have this problem. Europe has super competitive groups to get through. Like you get 2 teams, or like you get 2 teams per qualifier, and you'll have like 60 sign up. Whereas in Brazil and North America, we have like 10 teams max.
Yeah.
But the whole thing, the whole prestige of staying up. Now you go to an org and you say, hey, you are guaranteed a spot in Impact next season.
Staying up. So
we've shown that we can potentially fight for playoffs. There's a goal to attain, right? So
you made the point I was going to make, is that now you have 2 pug teams, by the way, unsigned, who can shop themselves around to orgs and be like, hey, you know,
well, next Divina,
you want
right?
your broadcast, you know, your sponsors and everything on you want views on your spots, you know, for your sponsors and stuff. Here you go. We're guaranteed 6 weeks, 7 games. Like, it's great. It's absolutely great for these 2 teams.
100%.
I love it because I'm a big fan of Bokor. We had her on the pod. She is an absolute
She's
angel.
Awesome.
I know. And she's made it. She's made it through. They played some excellent Counter-Strike. And what a crazy season that was. But even though Parks, even though that was a crazy ending to South America, what happened in North America has to be labeled as pure insanity, pure lunacy for North America, my friend. Because, well, let's get into it, shall we?
Yeah, week 5. Week 5 starts it all.
Well, I'll let you start week 5.
Yeah, so week 5, I mean, you got Sirens going up against Cherry Bombs, and Sirens take that one comfortably in a 2-0 fashion. 13-5, 16th, so maybe not so comfortable on Ancient, but it was still a 2-0 overall. The interesting matchup comes next. One of the first ones. There's like 4 or 5 that are interesting matchups. FlyQuest Red going up against EG Gold. EG Gold take the first map 13-11. FlyQuest Red then clap back 13-5, 13-2 on the remaining 2. So FlyQuest, they you know, the armor was broken it got a crack in it, and then they immediately said no and turned it around.
What map was it that they lost Ancient? Yeah,
they lost Ancient.
They actually looked really dead and buried in that map too. They were down like big in that map.
Then something turned around. They flipped a switch essentially, and they said, okay, let's just roll through this. Let's get this over with. I want to go pet my dog. You know, shout out. I believe Goose's dog's name is Bailey. I want to say it's Bailey.
Yes.
I could be wrong. No, it's Bailey. Shout out Bailey.
Creamy beige.
Yeah.
You've not seen the Mighty Boosh in that skit, have you? Okay.
Anyways,
no? Oh my god, I'll send it to you.
Totsugeki versus Hyperion was the next match. And again, this is kind of bottom of the barrel matchups. But it's you know, it's important for these teams because at this point, neither of them had a win under their belt. So Totsugeki going up against Hyperion, a 13-1 on Vertigo, a 13-7 on Mirage. And then the biggest matchup in terms of the result is Karma against Shimmer. And that's a 2-0, but it was for Karma. There's a 13-6 and a 13-11. Karma upsetting Shimmer's perfect record at this point, perfect record. And coming into week 6, the big problem with that was one of Shimmer's remaining 2 matchups was against FlyQuest Red.
Yeah, the real thing, well, not that it matters because it is like pretty much dead by this week, but Hyperion really botched the Vito versus Totsugeki. They never played Vertigo before. They played like 4 or 5 maps, and then they're just like, oh, we've never played Vertigo. Let's play Vertigo. I'm like, why? Why would you do that to yourselves? Rightfully punished. But yes, the big result from week 5, Karma over Shimmer, it kind of reeled Shimmer back in. You know what I mean? Like these
Yeah.
other teams were really clawing at each other, really starting to creep up by putting together some good Counter-Strike. And now you're looking at it going, well, Shimmer got to play because what did we say, right? The 3 toughest teams in this division were going to be FlyQuest Red, Shimmer, and EG Gold.
Correct.
And if you're Shimmer and you drop the series to Karma, you have to turn around and your last 2 opponents are FlyQuest Red and EG Gold. Everybody, I'm like, this is not dead and buried, man. This is not a done deal for
Well,
Shimmer.
and the huge thing is, if you're looking at Tsunami before this, because week 4 they beat EG Gold, you're looking and you're going, hold on a second here. There's a big opportunity, because now all of a sudden permutations start to narrow down. And coming into week 6, I mean, we'll get the first 2 days worth of stuff over, and then you get the kind of the 3 permutations that really mattered. So EG Gold going up against Hyperion, 2-0, man. It wasn't even close. 13-2, 13-3. Totsugeki going up against Cherry Bombs. This was a good match just because then you get the final rankings at the bottom of the plate. 13-8, 13-4 for Totsugeki, so they kind of locked themselves in above both Cherry Bombs and Hyperion. And then, of course, the Saturday comes around, and FlyQuest Red versus Shimmer comes through, and it's a 16-14 on Mirage for FlyQuest Red, and then a 13-4 on Overpass. There wasn't really much that Shimmer could do on that series.
And then
Tsunami
Evil
Sirens,
mode here.
Tsunami
Big
Sirens,
serious mode.
Tsunami Sirens versus Team Karma. This one was a long one. 13-6 on Ancient for Sirens. Karma clapped back, winning on Anubis, which is very cool because that's how Karma qualified, was against the Tsunami Sirens side on Anubis. They won that map 3. It was 19-15 this time around. They had to go double OT.
Double OT, yeah.
Or single OT if you're an MR15 enjoyer, as we are. 13-9 on Overpass, though, secured it for the Sirens. So when it all came down to the final day, FlyQuest Red had already qualified.
Yep.
Second spot was up for grabs, and the main thing was who is going to win between EG Gold and Shimmer, because if Shimmer win and you're in. Shimmer win, they're in. They're good. If EG won, Shimmer if EG won.
You need me to take over?
Yeah, I think you need to take over here.
So the big thing that I think people need to realize too is that the Shimmer Karma loss back in week 5, or the Shimmers lost to Karma back on week 5, meant that we potentially could have had 4 teams finish at 4-3. Like that, it could have been a 4-way tie. It didn't happen with the results that happened earlier in week 6, right? But what it meant was Sirens beating Karma meant that if Shimmer won, they were through, no matter what. If EG won and Tsunami lost to Hyperion, EG would go through. If EG won, but Tsunami beat Hyperion, or bottom of the table, Tsunami Sirens would tip everybody to the land.
Yeah.
That's what it meant. Like, so you had 3 teams battling for the land. Karma's lost to Siren pretty much wiped them out of the land qualification spot. But had EG won and Karma won and Sirens won,
Shimmer would have been relegated. Which is
nuts. So you had 4 teams capable of being relegated, essentially.
Yep.
And you had 3 teams fighting for one spot.
It was 3 teams, because EG were locked in to get a playoff spot, or like EG were locked in for a top 4
to come back. Okay, yeah.
So it was 3 teams that were
3 teams fighting against relegation, and at the same time fighting to go to the land. Like, it was nuts. It was nuts. It was pure nuts.
So yeah, I mean, there's a huge thing that comes through. And I mean, we'll leave the big decider to the end here, but I mean, we got to start off first with Cherry Bombs going up against FlyQuest Red. That was the dead rubber. That was just, you know what, that's an enjoyable. If I'm the Cherry Bombs, I'm looking at that match. I'm going, you know what, this is an enjoyable match. It's the end of the season. We already know where we're at. We already know where FlyQuest Red are at. We're just gonna have fun with it. Like, this is like not necessarily a stroll. You're gonna take it semi seriously. However, it's just one of those things that
y'all want to meme FlyQuest Red?
Yeah, basically, exactly what it is. So FlyQuest Red took that 13-2, 13-6. The 2 matches that kind of decided the fates of some other teams here. Hyperion going up against Sirens, 13-3, 13-2. Hyperion, unfortunately, never really got started. There were some really close rounds, but they just never there was never any kick up as a result.
And real quick, that series finished. So that's how they finished. FlyQuest finished first.
Yeah.
Tsunami Sirens finished second. They were done.
Yeah.
They were flying over to the EG Shimmer stream to see
what
their fate was, right?
Exactly.
That's what they were doing. In the meantime, Karma beat Totsugeki 2-0, 13-10 on Anubis, 13-5 on Inferno, which meant Karma were flying over to the same stream.
Everybody was in there. We all packed in.
Did we make it? Did we escape relegation?
Mm-hmm.
And everyone was watching Shimmer and EG Gold. Shimmer took the first map 13-3, which was EG's map pick. Well, map 2 was Mirage. EG had quite some fight. At one point, it was 7-7.
Yeah.
It was pretty even all the way. EG actually had the lead at one point, I think 11-8.
Yep. They had
and
a bit
Shimmer ran it back 13-11. They down EG 2-0. It means they are 5-2. Tsunami Sirens, who I wouldn't have expected to finish 5-2, had a great campaign, finished 5-2. But the first tiebreaker is a head-to-head result between the two teams, and Shimmer beat Sirens back on CS:GO.
Yeah, all the way in week 1.
Yeah, on Go.
All the way in week 1.
Opening week of the season, 16-6, 16-10, and that means that Shimmer is the team that goes to Valencia. But what a nuts finish. What an absolutely insane finish. I definitely tried to run through all the permutations as they were happening on Twitter. Screwed it up so many times. I'm sorry. But you got to understand, it was very hard to figure it out because there were just so many permutations of what could have happened. Like, it was nuts. It was absolutely
100%.
nuts. To be honest, EU was even worse after week 5, trying to figure out who would get relegated and stuff.
At that point, it wasn't really. The EU has so many more issues just because of how large the groups are on their own. You're doing, and then you have to do both. You have to do essentially the calculations twice. Anyways, so that does lock in FlyQuest Red and Shimmer. Huge ups to Tsunami Sirens, EG Gold as well, just staying in for another season. Team Karma are the one that get relegated, along with Totsugeki, Cherry Bombs, and Hyperion. But man, what a great season! And I mean, we've kept saying it over and over again, but this is the most competitive season we've had of Impact in NA. And should it hold like this, I think we're gonna keep getting this kind of a fight from these teams where you'll have a few in towards the bottom that not necessarily, they're not going to challenge a FlyQuest, or they're not going to challenge a Shimmer, but you'll have these middling teams like Tsunami Sirens, like Team Karma, like EG Gold, who they're on the cusp. They're right there, and that they could potentially cause an upset on one of these teams and really be like what Shimmer was last season when they won against FlyQuest Red. That was Shimmer's huge moment. Tsunami Sirens and Karma and EG Gold are on their way for that exact same thing as well. I think it's coming. So that does lock in our 8 teams, though. Just quickly to say, for the Valencia finals, we have Nigma Galaxy, Navi Javelins, 9 Pandas Fearless, FlyQuest Red, Shimmer, Furia, Fluxo Demons, and of course from the Asia qualifier a while ago, HSG. So that's all 8 that will be in Valencia for
Who do you want to win? If you could pick one team right now, not saying, oh, I don't think they're going to win it. If you had to award the tournament based on who you like the most,
FlyQuest Red.
Who would you give it to?
I think I'd give it to FlyQuest Red.
All right, okay.
I
would give it to HSG.
I would love the storyline. I would love the storyline of Shimmer winning it as the only unsigned team. I want the story more for FlyQuest Red of they lost their org support and a new org swooped in. They took their time with the roster and they came back to it and they won. And it's the next step up from Dallas. So that's the
That's true. That would be a great storyline. I would take HSG because Asia, go Asia.
Shout out Bouchard, by the way, for qualifying for LAN
finally make it. Yeah,
huge qualifier.
We get to see Bouchard on stage. I'm not gonna be there.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I'll make sure to get.
I'm to spend the life savings. Here we go.
Yeah.
I'm just teasing.
All right. We've rambled on enough about all of that. We've got a lot of announcements to get through. Most of them are pretty quick, so we can kind of run through them. I think you can take it away here on the first few.
Okay, so just some roster changes in EU. So Ents about 4 weeks into the season announced that Missy and them had parted ways via mutual agreement. Sounds like a football contract.
Yeah.
Instead, it is just, I mean, it is what it is. Shia was signed. Remember, she was dropped by Team Spirit.
Yeah.
She signed with Ents to stand in for the rest of the season. Actually played well. Ents looked a little bit better with her in the sign, I gotta say.
Yeah.
And that's not to take anything away from Missy. W7M, the big thing. Remember, they pulled out of this Impact League. Remember, right at the very beginning, they were like, "Yeah, we can't."
I think that's what brought Kafina in, if I'm not mistaken.
No, it's what brought Kenneth Grasa in.
Right, you're right.
I need to go back to our DMs because I just opened up somebody else's by accident. And the new lineup is we've got is it Luli? Luli Tens
Yeah.
and Kami have joined the lineup for W7M.
Yeah.
So that means that the lineup for W7M is now going to be
Hold on, I'm gonna check their. Yeah, it's
the
Hera,
lineup for W7M is now Kami, Luli Tens, Lei, Hera, and Josie.
Yes, and that was the team that played at the Cash Cup.
Yes,
number 2.
and Josie looked really good in that Cash Cup. Really solid rifler, right? Previously on Big Akipa.
Yeah.
So I think W7M might do some damage going into Season 5. Certainly you would expect a team of that quality to be in Season 5, to make it into Season 5. They'll be in the qualifier for sure. So
For sure.
that is W7M. Then you have some other roster changes. So Tohio is out as the NIP coach. Robel is in for Ex Divina, Kata Di Banana, and Cyber, who is the coach, stepped down. They picked up Bianchi and Chroma. Bianchi's the coach there. MIBR, this was an interesting one to me, Parks, because this is a roster update on the 18th of October. MIBR dropped Mizzy, who was their stand-in anyway, because they couldn't use Arcania, pretty sure. Or was it Bob's? They couldn't use Bob.
It was Bob's because Arcania stayed with Arcania was on Morcreas as a result of that move.
Yes. So they couldn't use Bob's because she was in the qualifier.
Right.
So it might have been Yojina, actually, now that I think about it. But
no,
I don't know.
I believe it was Bob's.
I think it was Bob's too. Or was it Mari? I don't know. Anyway,
somebody who played for Morcreas.
Yeah, somebody who played for Morcreas in the qualifier. But they picked up Bazina.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because then they went on to lose. And I'm like, why have you made this roster update, guys? So yeah, that was the roster updates that happened. The other piece of news that we got, and not a roster change real quick, but just an announcement, and that is Super Gamer Girl Pro is back. Now, not to confuse people, okay? But you have Girl Gamer Pro Fest or Girl Gamer Festival, and then you have Super Gamer Girl Pro.
Yeah.
So I have Super Gamer Girl Pro. We talked about it on a podcast before, believe it or not, because it used to run back in like 2019, 2020.
Right.
And it's like a 10-week tournament. You sign up each week. Each finishing position each week in those tournaments is worth points, and then the top few teams go to LAN.
Right.
There was a little bit of a concern back in 2019 when they ran this because the top 4 teams that they qualified, Super Gamer Girl Pro actually turned around to them and said, "Okay, can you find your way here?"
Oh.
And the teams are like, "Oh, well, we qualified. Aren't you buying us the tickets to go?" And they're like, "No, you just get to play if you show up." And it was like, that's not how this works, mate. So eventually they did work it all out.
Yeah.
But it was one of those ones where they tried to like pull a fast one.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm a little bit worried. But I do like the concept of the 10-week online tournament and all that stuff. I don't know if that's how they're running it this time. But they have had multiple smaller festivals that aren't preceded by an online tournament, I should say, right? They're just little festivals that they had out in like California and stuff. So
looks, just from looking at the page here, it looks as if it's just going to be a weekend tournament.
And that's
just,
fine. They've
yeah,
run plenty of them before. They always tend to be okay. Small price pool, and look, they help a lot of women who normally don't get the LAN experience get LAN experience, which
Yeah.
for however small or whatever setting it is, I'm very grateful for it. So big
Huge.
excited that they're back. Welcome back, Super Gamer Girl Pro. The other big change here, Parks, is Shimmer.
Right. Yeah. So we delved a little outside of the roster changes for a second here, but coming back into them, Lisa did announce that she was stepping away due to school. So I believe she's going on to continue her nursing stuff, and
Yes.
get that all done. In the absence of her, Abby took over as IGL, and they managed to bring in quite a player, quite a prospect from down under. Actually, LX Lynn was joking with me and said, if you can't beat FlyQuest, join them. And so they picked up Phoebe, who originally plays in Oceania. And so she flew over. They flew her over, and she ended up boot camping with Empathy. She stayed with Empathy. And actually, it's one of the iconic things of the ending of week 6 was when they beat EG Gold. Is those two like jumping into each other's arms because they know that they've qualified for for Valencia, and so Valencia will have 2 Aussies there instead of the 5 that it had last time around when it was a standalone tournament with Mind Freak. Oh dear, what's he doing? Oh, he's grabbing something. Oh, look at this. Oh, Benny. That's amazing. That's amazing. He's got the fans going there. That's perfect. Yeah. If you can't tell already, we are huge supporters of the Oceanic scene, specifically Australia, for both Bibian and Phoebe. And it'll be great to see them there. I know Phoebe was so excited.
I've just made a whole bunch of noise banging my mic into the desk.
Yeah, I can imagine. I didn't come across, so don't worry about that.
Okay, good.
So yeah, that's the last huge players announcement. I thought we felt it needed to be on its own little separate thing because of how big of a move was. It's huge.
It won't stop waving.
Yeah, of course. It's because you got fans on it. You've got fans.
Fun with flex.
All right, moving on here. Just one more announcement on rosters. We mentioned them earlier. Snowguard Dragons have picked up a team. Yeah. It looks as if it's a bunch of young German players.
Yes.
So that'll be
now that I'm an Aussie Jedi, by the way.
Yeah, you're an Aussie Jedi. So they'll be playing in the Play Bay Female Cup in Hamburg, as well as Cash Cups and other stuff. And I bet we'll probably see them in the future for Season 5 qualifiers when those get announced and all that kind of gets sorted out. But for now, yeah, good to see another team getting picked up, and good to see more prospects potentially coming forward here in EU and showing how competitive that they are as a region.
It's just gonna be me. It's just gonna be wind up making the Season 2 highlights of
Brace
for Impact.
You're very
a 3-minute struggle of me with the flag. Nonetheless, so you know how remember the scene where Darth Maul has his lightsaber and he's like this and it like turns on the one side and it turns on the other?
Yeah.
Instead of the zoom zoom, my lightsaber is just gonna be like, good day. So no, other announcements outside of Snotgar, and that is we'll start with a little bit more serious one, and that's Bokor. Big shout out to her, right? We had her on the podcast. She talked about kind of her struggles with depression and just really her emotions, right?
Yeah.
And it can be a very serious thing, right? She announced that she was recently diagnosed with grade 1 ASD, which is autism spectrum disorder.
Yep.
And giftedness. So it's kind of that's what she's battling. She's done unbelievably well, I would say, with battling through this condition. Especially as an in-game leader as well, by the way. So when you have to be just kind of like taking in everything all at once, you know what I mean? So shout out to her for coming forward. I hope it helps many other women who are struggling with maybe not just autism, but any other disorder or mental struggles in general, right?
100%.
So very brave from Bokor.
Yeah,
I give her, and I'm sure you feel the same way, all of my support.
100%.
And I really look forward to really then just seeing her continues to play,
100%.
and hopefully that she, now that they've diagnosed it, they
She
can
can get
go
the
down
help
a
she
path
needs.
where it becomes even more manageable for
Yeah.
her, and she can continue to break the ceilings that she's broken through already in such a young and promising career. So shout out
100%.
Bokor.
Shout out Bokor. We love Bokor. We love what she's
Yeah.
done, and we love that she's going to continue to play the game she loves, even with any of the challenges that face her going forward. Where does that leave
At
us?
least
And,
one final piece of
well,
news.
you know what?
Bart.
Actually, we got we skipped over Gamers Club, voting on CS
Oh
Player of
yes,
the Year.
I'm sorry.
No, well,
That's true.
I don't actually know what the answer who got voted
So
in.
the they haven't announced the winner yet, but
Okay.
Gamers Club have nominated or released the nominations of Women's Player of the Year. Now, of course, they're all Brazilian.
Yeah, there's 8
Gamers Club
players.
doesn't do anything outside of Brazil. It's not really
It's
not a big surprise.
Yeah, it's female of
and
the
I feel like
women's player of the year in Brazil specific.
yeah, okay, that's fair.
Let's
Or South America in general, because
Yeah.
Uruguayans and Argentinians can be
correct. Yeah,
nominated. I think the other thing is too, I think there is this dichotomy, and it's a weird dichotomy, and I hope it's one that does break,
yeah.
where Gamers Club do wonderful work,
Mhm.
but they don't do anything outside of Brazil, and maybe a lot of the highlights or features that they have isn't necessarily spotlighted on areas outside of
Right.
South America, right?
Right.
And ESL, you can see they don't really necessarily have an eye on things in Brazil. And the reason I say that is because when you've had basically the same scenario in North America and South America before the start of this season, right? W7
Yeah.
Impact out of South America, Detonate Sparks pretty much dissolved in North America.
Yeah.
They didn't know who to invite for South America because they don't know who's the next team in line. What do we do? So we'll just run a playoff.
Yeah.
We'll just run a playoff. And then in North America, they're like, we'll just invite this team because we know these players and they're former players and they have LAN experience and international LAN experience
Right.
which is cool. I'm okay with both decisions. We've pounded them to death. I've even helped decide on the one, being part of the women's council.
Yeah.
No, but the point is, like, there's not a lot of eyes on Brazil from an HLTV standpoint, from an ESL standpoint, from a Faceit standpoint. You know what I mean? And I hope that changes in 2024. But all of that aside, the Women's Player of the Year for Gamers Club, Anna X, Bobs, Goddess, Isa, Ka, Nani, Poppins, and Junger.
8 players.
It's tough to pick, mate.
Dude, we just
I don't
which
think
team is Ka on? Because there's 4 Fluxo Demons players.
Ka is on
Furia.
Yeah.
And Isa's on Furia, I'm guessing, as well.
Ka, Isa, and Anna X are all on Furia now.
So there are 4 Fluxo Demons players, 3 Furia players, and a single MIBR player on there. That's
kind of
insane.
how good Fluxo Demons.
100%. That's how good they've been. It's insane to think.
But Furia look really good. Like, I'm excited to see that at the LAN now that they are back. First time since I think season 2, I want to say.
Yeah.
That they're back at LAN.
I don't think we mentioned this. Sorry, just to cut you off here. I don't think we mentioned this, but Furia won Superliga Femenina. We didn't mention that at all.
Yes, we didn't mention that. We can cover it in depth next week if you'd like.
We don't have to necessarily cover it in depth. Just they won.
Yes, they did win. It's a Superliga Femenina was the qualifier for Masters Femenina. They're actually doing the qualifier right now, believe it or not, as we speak. So the qualifier is going on. We'll touch on that next week though.
Yeah.
And we'll highlight Superliga Femenina next week and do it. We'll do it actual justice.
We'll do it. We'll do what properly deserves.
A little bit. Yeah. But I don't know who you pick out of this lineup of what is it, 8 women. I would love for Poppins to win it, but I don't think when you look at her performance versus say Junger, Anna X, Bob's, you know, I think it's a big achievement that she's 17 and she's nominated for Women's Player of the Year.
I think it's a huge thing. I think it's a huge thing for Fluxo that 4 of their 5 players were nominated. Like, could you imagine the whole team gets nominated? Like, that's what if Fluxo had that. Fluxo basically in this best player of the thing is kind of what Nigma are to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
It's
But
that's
then,
the kind of levels, right?
if I'm Julie, and I'm going to use my swear,
Yeah.
if I'm Julie on Fluxo, I'm sitting there going, "What the fuck?" You know what I mean? Like, you're only not playing. Like, oh my god, and
I'm here
she's not
too.
played. Yeah, exactly. She's not played bad by any stretch of the
No.
imagination. Um, it's very tough. I think if you look at names, I think you drop. Like for my pick, just to go over it really quickly, because
Yeah.
I know we're running up to time. I think you drop Poppins. I think you drop Ka. I think maybe then you drop Goddess, and you're looking at Anna, Bobs, Issa, Nani, and Junger, and that's really tough.
Yeah.
I think you drop. I would give it. I want to give it to Junger. She's my favorite player in Brazil.
Yeah.
But I think you have to give it to either Anna or Nani. I think Nani has played so consistently
Yeah.
for B4/Fluxo, right? It's one of those things where, like, you remember how Junger against on that comeback, that turnaround that they did against
Right.
Black Dragon,
Yeah.
AWP was just lighting it up. It got hot, right? All
Yeah.
of a sudden. And it's one of these things where, like, even if Junger can't find the AWP, maybe because they can't buy it enough or whatever, if Poppins is missing shots, something, right? Something happens. Nani is always there for Fluxo, right? It's just,
Right.
it felt like she was always the player that her chart of her performance is more like this, whereas Junger's might have been a little bit more like this, Poppins might have been a little bit more like this, you know what I mean? And it's just, it's that one constant. Anna and Bob's at the end of the season, though, those season
Huge.
3 finals parts
Huge.
and their performances in season 4, like,
Big.
unreal. So Anna, I think you could definitely give it a good shout. Issa's played lights out recently, same with Cup, but I think again they're more up and down
Right.
a little bit. And Anna and Nani have really been the two. I would give it to Nani, but I would hear arguments for Anna all day. I don't know who you would pick. I have a feeling not anybody because you don't follow the region.
I think your assessment of what Nani has done so far is pretty much
Yeah.
spot on, and that's who I would go with. The only other one I would say would be Ana. Like those Ana X and Nani are the two that I'd say like are the ones that I would put forward as names.
Okay.
We'll have to wait and see. Honestly, that's just one of those things we'll wait and see on. Speaking of waiting and seeing on, just one final announcement then. Somebody who she played very little in Impact, but she's still found her way forward here. The Plague, who was a team in Open last season, they won all of Open, so they got the automatic advancement all the way up to Advanced in NA. They have recently been signed to Slate, and that is Cincy. Synixes, sorry, I see the note that you wrote there. So I had to do that just to troll you a little bit. Synixy is one of the members of this team, so she joins Squida, Orbit, Emmons, and Control.
I mean, Squid is a former advanced player, by the way. So
Yeah,
that, I mean,
so there,
no
it's a
surprise
good,
there.
it was a good
Yeah.
squad going into Open. They won the whole thing. They qualify for Advanced. They have an org under them, so very cool to see another women's player who had a little bit of a little bit of time and Impact, but scheduling conflicts and everything like that meant that she couldn't play the full season. She ended up going her own way. Played with the Plague just to get more experience, and now she's found her way onto an org and all of that. So great to see. I hope they have some success because it's always good to see good teams, or good to see development from players all across the board. I mean, we saw what happened when really good women's players joined these advanced teams, and a lot of times they elevated them just because their standard was different, but it was the goal was the same of just trying to win all those games. So huge for them. That is going to leave us to the end, though, Benny. And over the next 2 weeks, what are you watching, my guy?
Gamers Club, because Masters Femenina, I'd have to check the dates when it's going to be announced. But I mean, the qualifiers are here. I'm going to be watching my golf handicap as well. I'm playing twice this weekend.
Yeah.
So no, I am playing twice this weekend though. So, but no, I think Gamers Club. I think what's going to happen is I'm actually Parks. I'm at a real big crossroads with it right now. Right. I have made the tweet and I agree, and I know we're running up the time, so I don't want to take too much more. I agree that maybe we should have stayed on Go all the way through to the player break at the end of the year and then swapped over to CS2. I think that would have been a better choice. My concern is the Gamers Club Masters Femenina is a big event, right?
Yeah.
Gamers Club is playing on Go still. Like this tournament's on Go, Super
Yes,
League of Femenina's
we've
on
talked
Go,
about
this
this
qualifiers
before.
on
We've talked
Go.
about this before.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I didn't think about the timing. Do they try to wedge this in before the season 4 finals of Valencia and risk harming the team's chances at Valencia because they have to practice and play on Go when the whole rest of the world is going to be practicing and scrimming on
CS2.
2?
Yeah.
It's a big risk, man.
I
If you're a
think if you're
Gamers Club.
Furia and Fluxo, you kind of look at that and go, we're playing CS2, we're grinding CS2 because it matters more, and then we're gonna mail it in for Go. Like we'll mail
I
it
mean,
in.
maybe
I
that
think
might be
I
good
think
enough to get them to 4th place.
I
You know what I
think
mean?
the
Like,
I think honestly, I think something you should do is I think they just mail it in. Like as a player,
Yeah.
you hate saying that. As
Yeah.
somebody who's like, we need to prioritize,
yeah.
you
Yeah.
gotta mail it in on one because you want to succeed in the other one. I'd say a lot
Yeah.
more. That's just
So
my
that
personal thing.
whole situation is what I'm watching in Brazil.
100%.
Parks, what are you watching?
I'm keeping tabs on the NA teams, man. I mean, we're into the off season mostly, so we've got but season 47 has started, so we've got Karma going back up again. I think they're in intermediate now because they made playoffs. We've got EG Gold in Maine.
Yeah.
We've got
They're looking
CLG,
good.
or sorry, we've got FlyQuest Red in advance. So we've got, different divisions, but, more of the same across the board. So, yeah, it'll be good to keep up with them and kind of see what's happening.
I'm watching one of the things, Parks.
Yeah.
I'm watching one of the things. As your official, unofficial women's council,
Yes.
I'm watching all the applications come through for the season 5 invite spots.
There aren't any invite spots, Benny.
It's the joke, damn it. Go with the joke. Okay.
No.
I am looking at everyone's Twitter page.
We are
to see how
dissolving
many
the
followers
women's
they have.
council. It is over.
I am seeing how many Twitter followers everybody has.
Yeah.
Okay. And how much influence they have over the scene to decide
Correct.
who will join the 4 teams.
I cannot wait to be able to invite my own squad just because of my Twitter followers. Thanks, Benny. Thanks, Women's Council.
You're welcome.
All right. That joke aside, it's been played out far too long. I'm glad it'll die after this
I'm
episode.
done with this costume now.
Good. We will be back in 2 weeks' time. We hopefully will have something cooked up for you by next week. If not, we'll try and figure something out. I've liked the streak that we've had so far, having an episode of something out every week. But we'll see what comes through. Anyways, I've been Parks. That's been Benny. He's flying the flag upside down. Somebody's gonna be very upset with him. So on that note, we are gonna get out of here. There we go. All right. Have a good night, everybody, and we will see you in the next one. Bye for now.
I can't sing.